Yeah, I'm happy to introduce Lenka Burgerova. You all got to know her, commenting and pushing things forward during the last 2 days, and you got to know her already on the stage yesterday, but I have not introduced you properly. I figured, and I'm so sorry that I didn't do that, and I will do it now. Lenka Burgerova is PhD holder in an engineer in architecture. She's born 1977, so she's still very young. That's why I'm mentioning that. And she's an urbanist and social economic historian, and she's, as you might have heard, and for those who haven't, now you know, she's head of the Department of Urbanism at the Faculty of Architecture and Art in Liberec, at the Technical University of Liberec, and the same time assistant professor at the Faculty of Architecture at the Technical University of Prague. This sounds already like a lot of work, but additionally, she is also deputy mayor of the Prague 7th district, and there she's responsible for urban planning. To shorten it, you could have imagined that. She's 10 years active in local politics, and she told us during the last day that she actually started also being an activist. And I think she kept this activist force and belief as far as I got to know her. And I'm very, very interested and very, very looking forward very, very much to hear how she will combine these different insights she gained in her professional life to give us a final keynote so that we can take away her thoughts for our further and ongoing discussions. So please welcome very warmly Lenka Burgerova for the second and last keynote.
Good. I wanted to say afternoon, but it's already evening. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will take it from maybe more practical angle because the lecture we had tomorrow was more theoretical. So and that's also because someone mentioned just a couple of minutes ago that it's very important that we are learning by doing. And believe me, I learned it the hard way, by doing. So I will wave. It's because I don't have a presenter, so I needed to postpone to go on with the lecture. What you're looking at, it's an essence of what happened in some cities of the Czechoslovakia through the communist regime. On the picture on your right, in the upper part, you have the historical city of Most, 800 years old, which was completely erased from the earth, except the church, which was transferred on the rail track. So the whole Gothic church, they just loaded on the rail track and they transferred it of 800 meters to the other side, to the space behind the railway tracks and behind the Bílina River, where was literally nothing. What you can see on the lower picture, that's the new city of Most. Why this was happening? There were two reasons. One, the brown coal, which was underneath the city, very close to the ground. So that was used as an excuse to destroy the city. Plus there was another reason, and that was more connected with ideology. So the old city was described as a couple of old stones which just gathered together and where there is no real need to keep them. So the new city was built completely with all the amenities, with the schools, with the town hall, with theater, with everything. But for the long time, the people from Most, from the old city, which were moved involuntarily, towards the new city, they really struggled. And not only the people from the old most, also other ones which were moved there against their own free will from the nearby villages, also destroyed by brown coal mining. So not by all the cities in the Czechoslovakia it was the same, but the level of destruction was very, very significant. If you imagine that Czechoslovakian cities were not really bombed, just few of them through the Second World War, and in the 80s, when this was happening mainly, it felt like after the war somewhere, yeah? So the level of destruction was really incredible. To help you understand how much of the new housing was raised in the capital of Czech Republic, today's Czech Republic, in Prague, I took this picture. So there you see the historical city, and then the enlargement made through the First Republic, and then the second one, the green line, which is basically the enlargement up to 70s. And here, in the other picture, with the same line in the surrounding, you see the housing which was made in Prague after 1945. And those basically were all the mass housing estates of the different quality made from the 50s up to basically the fall of the Iron Curtain. Again, we are in Prague. A picture you might see a little bit here because someone was presenting Paris. So we also had our very own Le Corbusier, Josef Havlíček, and he wanted to add some high-rise buildings into the tissue of Prague. So maybe you recognize the famous bend of the Vltava River on the left part, and there, right in the center, right behind the old city, you see those three skyscrapers. One of them was meant to be a United Nations building because at the time they were seeking for a new seat. Unfortunately, finally it wasn't Prague, so this was also not happening. Havlíček was also author of something which is very close to unité d'habitation. So the building at the bottom, this is an experimental housing. Very famous, but with a lot of problems. They had a very minimal kitchen, so it never worked in the intentions that it was planned. But there was a very, very strong vision behind it. So going into mass housing, we discussed through those 2 days the aesthetics, how important the former aesthetics, the original aesthetics of this housing is. And let's say that for the people in Czech Republic living in those estates, most of them, they really don't care. Yeah, it has a lot to do with the situation that they were not really voluntarily choosing to live in those block of flats. There was basically a list of the families, and when you come at the top of the list, you were awarded some type of housing. But I have to say that this housing was appreciated, because comparing towards the derelict centers of the cities, and you have seen most, and I already mentioned that the situation in many, many centers of Czech cities was really derelict, really hard. This housing in the outskirts, but still, as you have seen in Prague, quite near to the center, connected with tram or even with metro, that was appreciated because the quality, the comfort was really not comparable with what you had in the old cities. The mass housing really flourished after 1968. That was also a part of the bread and games approach of the regime, because to achieve as many apartments as you can would make the people maybe a little bit regretting what they lost when the where the French armies went to end the revolution of 1968. So aesthetics, is it something important today? Could it be changed? Because we are constantly changing it. We are adding isolation. That couldn't be done without the change of aesthetics. We are changing the windows. The original facade is practically not visible once you make the building energetically sustainable. The second issue we are facing in the ensembles is the lack of street. But it was also intentional because Le Corbusier thought that that's the right way how to do it, that the policemen will be not needed anymore because with no streets you don't need the policemen which are taking care of transport and other issues. So there was a strong support of elevated and inner corridors. The examples we had where it was tried, it was a disaster. Because there is a very old psychology behind, yeah. If you're walking through the open space and you don't feel comfortable, you can always escape. In the closed corridor or at some elevated sidewalk, this is limited, yeah. So plus there were issues with maintenance and many other things. So this ideal approach was used somewhere, but not massively because it generated a lot of problems. Here you're looking not at the housing after 1945, but to some very nice examples of experimental housing from the 30s. Here I will give you examples from my city district, because we don't have mass housing there. But we do have nice examples of experimental housing. That's what you're looking at, where the apartments are, basically all of them, are up to 50 square meters. And we will come to that back. This was the standard for a family, 50 square meters in the 30s. And let's take another example. This is later. This is between the end of 70s, beginning of 80s. And this is again a modernistic building, which is not only embedded in the structure of basically late 19th century part of the city, but it also is making a little bit space. Yeah, with this low addition, it demonstrates that that should not be building just in just near me. I need some space. Another example, what we can see not only in our district but all around Prague, is an aim to enlarge the streets. But of course, no one has enough money to destroy the whole city to enlarge the streets in one step. So we do have some some buildings from the 30s which are going at the point that the street will be in the future 30 meters wide. And then what you're looking at here is 40 meters. But as you can see, nothing really happened. So this is why we have some gaps, some irregularities in the street pattern, also in the historical city, everywhere, near the historical center of Prague, sometimes even in the very historical center of Prague. And those changes were prepared. They were all in the master plan, but they were not executed. So we have prefabricated constructions in the heart of our historical cities. But because the buildings in the surrounding are from very different periods, built in a very different style, that's okay. The environment is rich. It's not a problem for anyone. Let's see. I would say that we have much bigger problem at the outskirts, where a strong will to use the colors to change this gray, white aesthetics of the mass housing was really strong after the political change, after the Velvet Revolution. And not only that, because as you can see here, they also opted for quite strange additions, like small cottages on the top of the houses. Yeah. This was not made because they just wanted to do it. This was made because they had a lot of problems with the flat roofs. So after a careful consideration, this approach was taken on many buildings in Prague. And the question is, and I think we have heard it here in many of the lectures, where is the border? Yeah. So what is acceptable? Yeah. Where the change of the aesthetics, it's simply too much. And do we really care? When we have seen the Neustadt, yeah, the example which is already listed, I wouldn't say that it could be listed in Czech Republic. Because no original windows, no original facade, changes by the roof, changes of colors. The only thing with what Czech monumental administration would list it is this original concrete structure which is used as a decoration of the house and where you're hiding it was a staircase or some storage rooms. Yeah. So there we have also different approach in the different countries. What can be listed? What could be the conditions? Yeah, and when you think about what should be done as a first step, when I was thinking about it, I went back to the example from Barcelona, because in Barcelona, when Franco died and the regime collapsed, the first thing they did was not projects. First thing they did was research and books and education. So that was the first step of the process. To be sure that they will deal with the challenges of the whole city, which was also not repaired and not properly maintained for a long time, that they will deal with those challenges and problems properly. So I think that this is also what we can do. Of course, the structure is not the same, eventually, but the approach can be really similar. What is next step we can learn from Barcelona is they actually were able to scale. They were able to define phases. They were able to draw down scenarios for the change. What will be done first? If there is some approach like acupuncture, where you take just a tiny places from the whole city and you change them, because that would be the first step which will be appreciated by the people who are living in the city. The next step was infrastructure. And we spoke about infrastructures a long time. So we already know that the infrastructures on the level of technical infrastructure and transport infrastructures, but also public infrastructure like schools and amenities, they are very important. So that was the second level. And the third level were public spaces. So what to do with larger areas like the 80% of the public space we have in the mass housing, how they can be changed and what will be the steps. So the question is, do we allow the modernistic neighborhoods to grow and change? Here you have the original design of Ildefonso Cerda for Barcelona, and the steps which actually happened in the next, well, not only years, but tens of years. Yeah. So the question is the original design weaker today? And if we're saying yes, where is the boundary? So would we be able to set the similar boundary for the modernistic neighborhoods? Because I think that we all agreed through the discussions in those 2 days that some change is needed, but the definition of the boundary is needed as well. There are some quite interesting examples of densification. This is an example from Netherlands where a really large modernistic mass housing was partially demolished. There were many reasons. I think that majority of you know it. There was also a plane crash. That was the really bad technical conditions of some of the houses, social issues. There was much more. So the question of density, how much, again, where is this boundary? Yeah, up to what amount we are able to add, not to destroy the strong original concept of modernistic neighborhood. So this is, I think, also the question we have to think through, and maybe this will be a part of a manual we partially agreed that we will work on. Here you have some photographs, what they actually added to the structure. Generally, they worked with the scale and they added something which was not present in the area to be able to accommodate another social groups, to offer very different type of housing, for example, but also different institutions, different public amenities. And I'm not saying that this is the only way how to do it. This just is a question, and I think that can be a very interesting discussion if we allow it. Yeah, if this is something which is imaginable for us, because I think that the most of us we really appreciate the modernistic approach and the modernistic neighborhoods, modernistic architecture and urban design. Okay, next, please. When I was thinking what would be the imperatives, the important words, the important actions which should be taken in the modernistic neighborhood, what came to me was that actually I don't think that it's different from any other neighborhood. Not that much. Yeah. What you're looking at is a recycling process of a building. Building built in 80s, which was formerly a bank, and it was transformed into the town hall. It was transformed, the whole structure was kept, the additions are minimal, the changes in the design are quite significant. It was important not to destroy this modernistic building because it was a part of the neighborhood. It was also important to show some modesty, and on the left, in the upper part, you have the original state of the building, which was really not possible to use as it was. And very important part of the whole process was also architectural contest, architectural competition. Because, and there was a huge debate in the public, among the politicians, whether we should have architectural contest. Because it costs some money. Yeah. But after 70 proposals arrived from all over the world, I think that this was just solved. Nobody asked questions anymore after. So I think that architectural contests, not only on the level of architecture, but also on the level of urban design, landscape design in the modernistic neighborhoods, would be not only appreciated, but they are necessary to achieve the best quality possible. And also, they are quite important when you're discussing with the local communities, because the amount of the people who understands plans and understands if you just describe what you want to do in the neighborhood is significantly low. But once you get the proposals and once you get the pictures, then the discussion is much better. Yeah, then maybe you will really find out what is important for the people who has no architectural education at all. Okay. Public primary school, again, architectural contest in the area which is really derelict. And again, we were trying to find through the contest the best solution possible with a very limited budget. Yeah. So to put the school somewhere where it was not imaginable to have one was a part of the process and of the challenge. And next, not only in the traditional city, but also in the modernistic neighborhoods, the connections are important. I was quite surprised when we walked through Neustadt that there were some fences, because I'm not used to see them in a Czech modernistic neighborhoods. That you're not allowed to put fences anywhere because that's the land is owned by the state or by the city. So you're not allowed just to put the fences there. Generally, the very low fences are just around the children's playground or the spaces like that, which should be protected, but not because that's the property of someone. And also, I took pictures where there was a sign like that's private property and you're only allowed to park your car there if you paid some fee, or that was also in the Neustadt, yeah, such a signs that. So I was surprised that there were already areas which were more like private or rented, or I don't know how to describe it. Maybe in the discussion you can enlighten me how it really works here. Please, can you go back? This picture, this is a private project. Again, it was here. I was just laughing through the whole afternoon because all the points I've prepared, they were already discussed somehow. So this was a purely private project. But of course, the private company, first, they were not really willing to preserve the industrial heritage, which was there. As you can see, we finally managed to keep the whole structure of the industrial hall, which was there, which was still somehow represented in the area. And also, we managed to convince them that they should allow the public passage through the area. This is just an example, but connections, the space without fences, without like additional spaces where you can't go through, you have to go around. This is something which is very important also in the modernistic ensembles. And generally, they are there, but I have seen also some projects where this public space was really divided by fences into very small pieces, and then the whole thing ceased to work. Here we are by the riverside, and this is representing approach towards public spaces. The biggest problem I see in the modernistic neighborhoods is that the public spaces, there is a lot of them, generally, at least in the case of Czech Republic, and they are not programmed. Yes, there are some children playgrounds, for example, but the majority of the space in our context, and it might, of course, differ in different European countries, they are just empty and quite purely, quite badly maintained, because the amount of money you're getting for maintenance is really low. So to add something which will be in the same time inclusive, it is programmed, it is resistant. This was made this is a very important issue by this public space, by this park, that everything is resistant. Of course, also because it's a flooded area, so it was also designed that the flood just can go through it and nothing really happens. All the areas are inclusive, they are open. They are using advantages of the landscape and of the remains of the industrial heritage, but they are programmed. So there are spaces, of course you can do whatever you want there, but you have the possibility, there is always something which allows you to do something specific. If you're using it in another way, then it's up to you. The public space, this specific public space really helped us to make the community much more resilient socially, and also because that was a space with a lot of people without without home, and then the community which was there was not using this space. And I have to add that this was originally full of remains of the concrete panels, because it was a part of the port, and the city just the city used it like the depository of the cars which were taken from the public space, because you just didn't respect the signs, so the police took the cars there. So it was the abandoned part of the city, and at the same time it was by the river. So here the use of the landscape, because in the modernistic ensembles you have different types of landscape. Of course, somewhere it's more monotone, somewhere it's really rich. So what I have seen in Nantes, when they did a conversion by the industrial island, the first thing they did, they went through the whole landscape, and they made something they called map of treasures. Even if the treasure was a tree or a small garden which unintentionally or intentionally happened to be there, which are actually the tiny spaces we do have in the modernistic ensembles as well. So the map of treasures, and then maybe more programmatic areas to encourage people to use the space, which is significantly bigger than in the other parts of the city. Here we are back by the shortages, by the connections. We have also seen by Neustadt, and I think that you haven't had many of the other examples, that everywhere the public transport with a quite large capacity, like a metro or tram or even train, is needed to ensure the livability, to ensure the good neighborhood, that you ensure that the people really will want to stay there for a longer time. This we are particularly proud on, because this is a passage through the railway station. Okay, next. First, there was nothing. There was like sign, stop, you can't go along the river. In the second stage, this is the picture on the right. We just convinced, and again, it was with private developer, we convinced them to open, to tear down the wall, and just to open the passage by the river. And finally, and this is this picture on the right down. This is the passage underneath the railway station towards the river. And this is a passage from the hub where you have tram, metro, train, and the buses. And maybe you say, okay, well, what's on it? I have to add that this is a flooded area, and that tiny passage was worth 40 million crowns. And the railway administration was not really willingly doing this. They did it just because we pushed hardly enough. But this connection is now establishing a shortage, and there is really thousands of people who are using the passage and using the walk along the river, and this continues with the park. So again, when we will apply this on the modernistic neighborhoods, that will be about establishing not only the places but also paths through the landscape. So, and on those roads or sidewalks, along the sidewalk, you can have some places where you can gather, where you can spend your free time. Here we are back by the design. This was the hardest thing I did. That was convincing the railway administrators that their project, which you can see here up on the right, is not really fulfilling the needs of the public space. Yeah, the whole structure was covered by glass, and you don't see it, but somewhere in the structure there were also iron concrete walls, sometimes also 8 meters high, just to ensure that there will be no noise problems between the railway and the neighborhoods. Because I have to add that we have a very strange law against the noise. So basically you can't build near the rail track because the noise is measured in front of the facade always. So you can have a double facade, then it works. But by the older neighborhoods, which is the case here, it will not work. Finally, we convince the administrators that they should try some solutions from Switzerland. So finally, you have very low barriers. You have some fancy things in the train tracks, and it works. And I think that everybody's really proud on this solution, and they have it everywhere on the webpage. Again, also in those neighborhoods, there could be some major line, like train track, magistrala, actually. Yeah, there can be something else which is producing noise. And it's very important to approach also those infrastructural transport things with some, well, I want to say touch of design, but it's actually a lot of design. Next, please. Here we are again by a connection, and maybe by the how to actually execute some very tough tasks. You see that? Sorry, please go back. There is a line. There is a X with some shortages in between the two city parts, and that was there from 1930. But basically, that was a railway brownfield, which you couldn't even enter because all around were fences. So now next. This is how the area will look like in a couple of months. Still, there is 100 hectares of empty space in the very center of Prague. So what I wanted to say that maybe the approach we are trying to create, we are trying to shape up and think about it, is not only for modernistic ensembles. It is also for those parts of the city which are going to be built. Yeah, because from my experience, the developments which are now introduced as new parts of the city, let's say they are not much better than, well, in quality of at least of the apartments than, at least in Czech Republic, than what we are looking at in modernistic ensembles. This line in the middle, it's actually not there. And here we are by approaches. We named this a street. This is an area with a railway station, and please go one step there, and then we will. No. Up. One more. Yes. This is a place which has very important historical and cultural significance. This is the place this is the railway station where from 50,000 of Czechoslovakian Jews went to concentration camps. And at the end of the war, many thousand of Germans were expulsed, actually from the same station under more or less the same circumstances, like with the 50 kilograms per person. Then please back. So some of the parents who went to the concentration camps from this station gave up their children to the trains of Nicholas Winton. I don't know if you have heard about him. He saved around 700 of Czechoslovakian children, and he set them on the trains, and they traveled to Great Britain, and the British families fostered them till the end of the war. So it's a private land, yeah. That was all sold to the private company not a long time ago. It's a disaster, but it's not important in this issue. But there is no possibility to establish a proper connection, like a real street, because there are some railway issues, because it's a private area, because the change of the master plan is not finished. But it was possible to make a deal with the railway company and with the private developer, and to establish that very tiny, walkable and cycling connection through the land. And we name it Nicholas Winton Street. Of course, it's no street. But the wording is important. The story is important. Yeah? The narrative is important. The park you have seen, we named it Park by the Water, even if in the first stage there were only some remains of the concrete panels. It was already park. This is Nicholas Winton Street, even if it's for the moment just the path through the area. Please. And this is how it would look like in the future. So it is a path through the area, but at the same time, this will be the main axe on which the main public spaces will be, where the main public spaces will be connected. Again, resistant, inclusive. This is a critical connection, and the whole place before functioned as a sea. So no way how to go through. Yeah, you just had to go around, and there are, at least in our case, where you have larger ensembles, there are areas where the situation is very similar. So it's not well maintained, and it's dangerous. Maybe not really, but in the eyes of the community, it's the space which is not safe. Sometimes, and this goes much deeper, this is not achievable only from the city district point of view. This is a new connection which is enlarging the mental horizon, like the Nicholas Winton Street. So again, first we just went there with some boats and we took the people from one side to the other. Then we convinced the city, and there was a little ferry. And almost everybody was laughing at us that, ferry, that's really crazy idea. But after the ferry took, in, 5 months, 70,000 people there and back, then it was a path through to the pedestrian bridge. So sometimes it's about small steps, so I wouldn't be afraid about small steps, just to do one at a time, yeah? And the second, but like in the case of Barcelona, be prepared for the next step. So not just to take one and then, well, okay, we will see. No, to have a scenario and to be prepared to adapt, of course, according to the conditions. This was again very cheap project. I have to underline that we don't have much money as a city district. This is educational project where we just use the QR codes and the maps to let the people learn much more about those spaces around the river, about the passages, about the history, about what was done on the river, how those spaces functioned before today. And the aim was to make them more proud to where from they are, because generally we are not destroying what we like. And even if a lot of those areas are industrial and not all the people have a grasp for industrial spaces, some of them are just thinking that they are dirty and maybe not safe. Adding this layer meant that we convince the children that that this is maybe interesting, and instead of going to the zoo, they went with their parents and they just went through those paths and using the QR codes. I can't say that the whole area is now more clean, but it's more appreciated. Okay, please. And this is the last picture, and then I will have some just the final words. Those are the words of Nicholas Winton, and he said that if something is just slightly possible, there should be a way how to do it. And I think that this is very important when we are thinking about what can be done in the modernistic neighborhoods. So important is a scale. It's very important to work with the scale, to be able to scale down, to be able to scale up. It's very important to make the people to stay in the neighborhood, to stay as long as possible, to stay till night, to be there early in the morning. Because this is safety which is done by presence. This is also making communities stronger, because it's not so easy to achieve those grandmothers like in a historical city which are just looking out of the window. Yeah, in the States the distances are much bigger. Then it's very important to give back dignity to the space. And the dignity must not necessarily be like large embellishment. Yeah, it's not about decoration. It's about dignity. It's about to give the space some purpose, not only to the space but also to the people, on the level of making good public spaces for them. But also on the level of quality of the apartments. And here we are back by the standard, the average, and possibly the minimal housing. And I think that we can open those topics in the discussion. It's very important to provide opportunity, continuity, and actually the future, which was all on different levels achieved in the projects I just showed you. The construct of the future, this is if you feel that you have your position in the community, that you can actually use the public spaces, that you're welcomed. It's very essential to provide the best solutions on the level of landscape, architecture, art, and urban design, and that the tool can be, of course, urban architectural competition, art competition, any kind of competition. This is a tool which is really working. Also, it's very important to achieve representation of the community in the public space. So all the projects you have seen were done with involvement of the people from the beginning and on many levels, not only by like throwing some fancy meeting 5 o'clock in the afternoon, because it's not accessible for everyone. There were urban walks, there were visits to the houses of elderly people, there were visits to schools, there were special visits for the people with disabilities, so we can cover as much as possible, because some of the requirements they had, we could never imagine. Yeah, on the level of materiality, for example, yeah, of the sidewalks and many things like that. I already mentioned the infrastructures. Then very important point is inclusivity and exclusivity. Let me give you some example. In Prague, there's a very prestigious festival on the ground of mental hospital. Basically in the middle of it. Yeah. And it's a very prestigious festival, and many people who would never go to the mental hospital, they are of course going to the festival. So maybe there is a way how to achieve very similar things in the neglected neighborhoods. I'm not speaking about maybe about Neustadt, but through the Europe you will see communities where that could really help. Of course, very important is rebrand and find treasures and find the narrative which is working together with the people who are living in the area, who are using the area, and this is bringing joy and emotions. And again, if you're emotionally attached to your neighborhood, if you are seeing some signs in being a part of it, that's very important, and that could work in the long term. So this all couldn't be achieved without cooperation between the city district, city NGOs, state, all the communities, different state agencies. And I think that if we learn something from that, is that we are not doing what can be done on the other scale. So if there is an NGO, let's not intervene into what they are doing only. We can provide only support, some money or some other kind of support if they want it. But this is all a long-term work, and it would not work if just one partner is involved and the others are not working together or not looking to the same direction. Yeah, because we mentioned that there is a legislative frame needed, I have to say that a city district is in a very weak position, and for many actions you have seen here, there's no real legislative frame. So it's a decision that you would like to be active, that you always find a way, that you always find partners to work with them towards some task which can then happen. Because I lived 18 years in the modernistic neighborhood in city of Bílina, which is in the north of Bohemia, and I don't know if you have a very, very complicated neighborhood in Germany. That was it, yeah, with a lot of social problems in the area, with brown coal mines and many other problems, and they are using the same tools to make the city better, and I think it works. So I don't think that we need very specific tools, maybe some specific approaches, but if it's about better public spaces, if it's about making community proud, if it's about that you see some future within your neighborhood, I think that most of the tools we will be using will be no different from the other neighborhoods. Thank you.